exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, the great outdoors with Jason White.
Hello friends, I'm Jason White. Welcome to the Great Outdoors. Great to have you today. Have a very interesting show. But before I dive into the hot topics of the day and this week, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. Currently running a 30% special. Runs through the duration of summer. So if you're looking to get a membership, do not fear. The MOA is here, marianaoutdoors.com. You can call us at 724-579-0924 or go to marianaoutdoors.com. Again, 724-579-0924. Over 2.5 miles of private fishing. Trout fishing, that is. Trophy trout fishing. One of a kind, 6 different species. If you're looking to make some memories, take some amazing pictures, and certainly have some terrific stories, you need to come check us out. 1,000-yard rifle range is open. 2 different pistol ranges, 5 stand, and approximately 300 acres of upland bird hunting fields that are stocked weekly from September, typically into March, depending on bird availability. So please check us out, marianaoutdoors.com, and you can always call us at 724-579-0924. Always happy to give a tour if you want to come see things before you make that acquisition. But we'd love to have you. Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. If you'd like to book a guided upland bird hunt, if you're looking for just a weekend getaway on a cozy Civil War era farm, please check us out. If you're looking to book a turkey hunt, free range, no fence. I just want to stress that, free range, no fence. These are during normal seasons when I talk about turkeys, and also I want to bring up about whitetail deer. Whitetail deer hunts are available for this upcoming fall, archery and rifle season, so please check us out. Properties are managed by 10 Mile Creek Outfitters, so if you go to the website, which is 10mileco.org, again, that's 10mileco.org, happy to line you up with either a upland bird trip, relaxing getaway, or if you're looking to do really get out in the woods and experience a wild eastern U.S. turkey hunt or a archery or rifle hunt, we can make that all happen. And last but not least, I want to give a special thanks to Washington County Tourism Promotion Agency. Please visit Washington County, Pennsylvania. I want to jump into some hot topics. The Pennsylvania House of Representatives Game and Fisheries Committee recently had a hearing this past week. And wow, was this smoking hot. You can Google search the hearing. There's actually, or go on a search engine. The video is actually available. It's a little over an hour, so you can affirm what I'm saying. And also, I read in Penn Live. You can go on PennLive.com. It's their, it's a news article. They have news articles written about different things, but there is an article specifically. It took some different points about this hearing. It was, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've talked about on past shows kind of came to a head, and I thought it was very interesting because it was both sides of the aisle were basically throwing up major issues, major concerns. I'll start off with the fact that the new executive director was questioned about, why weren't other people interviewed? Why wasn't it an open and transparent process? Why would we not explore the idea of maybe there being somebody else that's qualified instead of just, kind of patching the hole with somebody internal that, came out of the same system? Huge valid point. Why there wasn't interview processes and procedures, I'm not really sure. I don't really know the details on that, but great question by that particular representative. Please check out that video. It is fantastic. When I say a good video, wow. Lots of great questions, both sides of the aisle, very, very informative. I thought it was fantastic. But I'm going to go through some different points here, some questions that were raised, some answers that were given, some answers that were kind of, I'll just call it deflection was had. But what did come out of the hearing is that currently, as of today, the Pennsylvania Game Commission has $506,697,000 approximately in a general fund just sitting there. That is an astronomical amount of money to be sitting there doing basically nothing. Now, the Game Commission's compiled and grown this fund from a plethora of different avenues, and one of the biggest ones is by royalties off of natural resources, which this then got a mountain of scrutiny because as of today, there are approximately 1,064 gas wells in the state of Pennsylvania that the Pennsylvania Game Commission gets royalties for. Some of the questions and concerns were the fact that the Game Commission purchased an electronic program in 2021 for reporting standards to basically match up with the industry to make sure that everything was kind of checks and balances. And as of 2024, of present day, they do not know how to use the program. There was questions asked as to how could this be? How in 3 years do you still not know how to use a program? And the Game Commission was pretty persistent with the fact of turnover rates, which did not sit very well with the representatives, rightfully so. That being said, also the reporting program that they are using does not match up with what the standard private industry is using. So they're using a totally different program, which doesn't make really any sense. So that created a problem. The other thing is they do not utilize direct deposit because they claimed that they were trying to have an extra check and balance, which I think on a personal financial perspective is totally ludicrous. You could still get direct deposit and still get a paper statement if that's what you're really wanting. But yes, even with direct deposit, you still have the ability to get paper statements just to assert the fact of like, for example, the check number, the date of the deposit, so on and so forth, and then all the data that goes with it. So I thought that was very interesting. So there's a lot of administrative work that's going into dealing with collection of checks and then having to do deposits based upon that. I found that to be extremely odd. I've never heard of a business of such a size as the Pennsylvania Game Commission investing such time and resources into collecting checks. It seems that there's a lot of questions as to the management of our gas well revenue, and I would even say just our natural resource revenue within the Pennsylvania Game Commission. The fact that we're not matching up with the private sector, and it even came out of the hearing that some of the things that are being handled and addressed financially and fiscally are not even matching up with the standards of other agencies. So huge red flags there. I think there needs to be, on a personal note, as far as my review of this hearing and the things that were said, I just feel like this is not a very fluid procedure. It's not handled transparently, which was said over and over and over again. I mean, realistically, these deposits could and should happen you would want them to happen on maybe a 1 or 2 day period once a month where they all electronically hit, and you could pull the reports if it's in this computer system that the private sector uses. But because it's not, it's just become basically this quagmire of inaccuracies and questions and question marks of people asking questions and not getting answers. So I think, really the Game Commission is, they have something here that they need to get their hands around. To have a program for 3 years and to not know how to use it and admit that in a hearing, oh my. The other thing is it was said over and over again about the fact of the turnover rates, and the executive director did highlight a good point that Title 34 says that there must be a legislative resolution needed for pay increases or for that the pay scales to be adjusted by the legislature. So, that is something that I think you're going to see probably some thought and discussion about compensation. I think this is a good thing. I think that it needs to be discussed, and there needs to be different bars for people to meet. Clearly, people are leaving, for whatever reasons, to go on to other businesses, etc., to make more money, for better opportunities. So I think that clearly the Game Commission needs to find other ways to clearly generate more revenue, number one. Number two, maintain hunting populations, which I'm going to dive into about that too. And number three, have good pay scales so you can maintain and keep, obviously, good employees. Employee retention is critical in any business. It's retention is probably the biggest asset of any business, because if you can maintain, whether that's clientele or employees, you know that you're at least stable or maintaining growth. And from the Game Commission's perspective, over years, they were hemorrhaging hunting license, hunters, trappers, etc. And it seems that they are still hemorrhaging employees. So we got a double prong thing there with hemorrhaging of hunters and trappers, number one, and number two, the hemorrhaging of employees, which I'm going to dive into about both of these a little more. The other thing, there were some questions raised about the use of vehicles. Processes and procedures there, checks and balances there. Really wasn't a clear answer. Basically, there was conversations about, well, we'll get back to you with some better information about that, and it raised a lot of questions, about the management of vehicles and what they can and cannot use them for, so on and so forth. Because people, it sounds, what they were alluding to is people are using them outside of the scope of business, which is a huge problem and a huge no-no. And then, you look at this from, so I mentioned about hunters and even these employees. Let's roll into the number of hunting licenses that was sold in 2015, 944,528. 2023, license sales, 852,000. If you subtract those numbers and take the difference and multiply it by $20.97 based off of your basic hunting license, which gets you the ability to hunt small game, turkey and deer. That does not that number does not account for any additional tags when it comes to migratory birds, bear, elk. Let's see here, trapping, pheasants, so on and so forth. It's a lot more money when you add up those other things. But if you start off with this basic number of $20.97, multiply it by the difference, the current Game Commission, by the loss of hunters and trappers, is just under $2 million a year they're losing in revenue from the loss of people no longer buying a hunting / trapping license. This is very troubling. This is extremely eye-opening, because the best way to have more money to pay people, the best way to have more money to invest back into the agency as a whole, is to retain hunters and to get growth and to drop approximately 90,000 hunters roughly over an 8-year period is a huge number. To me, it's the systemic economic issues it creates within the agency, number one. Number two, if you have 80,000 less people approximately purchasing hunting licenses, this also means that's 80,000 less people plus their families that are no longer buying, theoretically, guns, ammunition, going to outdoor stores, outdoor shows to purchase clothing, paraphernalia, the needs and necessities of hunting. Realistically, those people are no longer buying tree stands. Those people are realistically no longer buying the things that associate with the outdoors. Maybe that's UTVs, 4x4, 4x4 quads. This could be materials and tools for planting food plots, seed. There are correlations here that are extremely alarming. So it's to look at these numbers, and I'll give you the exact number because I didn't do the math and I apologize. It is, yeah, we've lost 92,528 hunters from 2015 to 2023. That is massive. I mean, do the analysis there. I mean, and in addition to that, are these people no longer traveling for hunting season? Are they not going to camps? So these are now negative impacts to small communities. I mean, theoretically, you're talking 92,000 people a year not utilizing the outdoors for hunting and trapping purposes, which then creates more systemic issues, because then you have kids not being passed down hunting and trapping, which then creates another negative effect, especially when it comes to this is why you're seeing a lot of these other implications with predators. You're seeing the issues with deer numbers and the fact that we need to sell more deer tags. I find it extremely alarming that we have in an 8-year span 92,528 less hunters in the state of Pennsylvania. That is such an alarming number. They are hemorrhaging at the seams, and they're hemorrhaging at the seams, in my opinion, for many reasons. One is I have never personally been given positive rapports on the game wardens as far as their demeanors or how they treat people or their connectivity with hunting and fishing clubs. I'm not defending it in any way. I'm not, demeaning it in any way. I'm simply stating the facts of what I've heard, what I've been told, and what I've personally experienced. That being said, if pay is an issue or a big contributing factor to this bad handling of the relationship with the general public, then yes, absolutely. I think we really, really need to look at things. Now, that being said, there was a study done, I want to say it was 15 years ago, roughly, give or take, and it was about the proposition of merging the Pennsylvania Game Commission and the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission into one basic wildlife and fishery agency, which from an ecological perspective, in my opinion, makes all the sense in the world. Now, some people will say, oh, well, that you can't do that. That would be terrible. I've never been given a quantitative or a realistic reason why it wouldn't work. I've only been told, oh, no, you just can't do that. That would be terrible in Pennsylvania. We're, to my knowledge, the only state that game and fisheries are totally separate, but we share a common House committee, we share a common Senate committee, we share the same resources when we walk out the door, but the agencies are handled totally separate and distinct. That being said, the issue about the vehicles got brought up. The study I'm referring to, which is, like I said, it's roughly 15 years old. Just the vehicles alone, not needing two agencies with multiple vehicles, it sounds like the Game Commission is mismanaging vehicles right now internally. So it sounds like they're wasting money on vehicles that they don't even need or that are being misappropriated or people who are potentially using for their own personal time. That's number one, a problem. Number two, if you have two different agencies, and I can assure you, I've had instances where I've seen a game warden and a fish warden show up at the same place. Why? I'll give you another good example. Did you know that the Fish Commission asked for backup of the Game Commission because the Game Commission has body cameras and the fish wardens do not? Little fun fact there, that if those that did not know, you're getting duplicate services because the Fish Commission basically does not have body cameras. Which, why they don't have body cameras, I don't know. Maybe it's a lack of money. Probably a good realistic idea. But that being said, why do I need 2 different people to show up that are doing the same exact thing? At the end of the day, this hearing was very telling. This hearing was extremely telling to the fact of loss of hunters, can't retain them, hemorrhaging employees, mismanagement of funds, and a lack of clarity as far as how monies are being spent or where they're being, allocated into different accounts. Questionable accounting procedures. It just, where there's smoke, there's fire. And to me, watching this hearing and reading about it in the paper, wow. There's so much there. It's unbelievable to me of how we got in this position. Now, at the very end of this hearing, which is where I'm going to transition to because I talk about this a lot, this is actually my last week's topic, was about game lands management. The Game Commission basically lauded their efforts of habitat improvement in Pennsylvania. And I have no idea where this is happening, that this is such a boisterous, positive regard. I've visited numerous game lands myself, and they are absolutely atrocious in the way that they manage habitat. Have they done different things over the years, like maybe put in like a swampy, marshy bog, which, yeah, that's good for certain species. Yeah, that's good for deer. I get it, but it's right next to a road. Like, that's not a spot that you really want that. Like, yeah, if you get it off the beaten path a little bit where the deer feel safe and the wildlife feels safe, but when it's right along a major artery corridor road, like, yeah, somebody's not going to sit right next to the road and hunt. Like, what are we doing here? Like, how are we investing our money? What is the return on that investment? I've had these conversations about the plantings of the food plots and different things. That isn't happening. Very rare that it happens. I know that they do plant some different areas of the state, but it's just a misman. Like, so what I'm interested to see is it was actually asked in this hearing about the standard operating procedures and the budget expenditures for the game land improvements. And the Game Commission said that they would be happy to provide that information. So I'm really interested to see that, because I don't know where the heck they're spending their money. And if they have $506 million roughly in an account and they plan on investing more, I don't know what they're going to invest, how they're going to invest it. I question that they truly understand and know how to invest it. And why I say that is I'm looking at the game lands from what I've seen. I've visited some in Fayette County, Washington County, and Greene County. And I have no understanding as to how they rationally could feel if every other county is even remotely similar to how these 3 counties have been managed by the Game Commission. I have no comprehension as to how they warrant game lands management or the cooperative properties. Like, I don't see it. I don't see a field that was once planted with millet and sunflowers and things like that was for the game, and now has not been planted for 3 years and is just a bunch of jaggers. Like, how you warrant that to be justifiable as a wildlife habitat, I cannot even remotely understand. Cannot remotely understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why we're incapable of zoning the game lands, and when I say zoning them, think of the game lands, okay, I have 1,000 acres. Well, you could very easily take a map and quadrant off the game lands so certain zones could be utilized for certain things, certain times of the year. So hear me out here. You know, during upland bird season, guys that are upland bird hunting, or guys, gals, kids, whatever, you do not need to be 400 yards into the woods to do the upland bird hunting. If these birds should be released in areas for them to be hunted. So there should be adequate space, adequate fields, etc. for upland bird hunting, if you're going to stalk upland birds. But that being said, if this same game lands is open for archery hunting, we should zone it off and manage the property, so that way it's, number one, safer. Number two, it's more efficient and effective, because now you don't have somebody going up, for example, taking their dog for a walk through the middle of the game lands, up through, let's just say, an orchard of oak trees. And Joe Blow decides that, oh, well, I'm just going to take my dog for a walk. And Tommy got off work and really, busted his butt to get out of work early, and he wants to do an evening archery hunt. And here comes Joe walking his dog through the middle of the woods during archery season. I hear these stories. And to me, it's totally freaking ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous because it doesn't have to happen. You have a totally mismanaged game land for game. And what it does, it creates safety issues. I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to that go hunting at upland bird areas that get stalked and say that it's totally unsafe, that people get peppered and sprayed with fallout from the BBs, from the shotguns. To me, hearing the gripes of hunters and trappers, and to hear this last hearing, it's like, what are we doing? Like, what? How in the world did we lose 92,000 hunters approximately? And it's like a fart in the wind. It's like nobody even, like, we're not collectively as a society saying, oh my goodness, look at the systemic impacts of this. The impacts are huge. The impacts are absolutely massive. Realistically, so let's look at this. So that means that by losing 92,528 hunters, we lost it's over 9% loss. Over 9% of the hunters in the state of Pennsylvania are no longer but purchasing a hunting license. Almost at 10%. That is insane. That is completely and utterly unacceptable. And the fact that it's mind-boggling. Absolutely. To look at these numbers and to hear what I'm hearing and to see the amount of money sitting in a general fund, our game lands should be a treasure trove for sportsmen. There's no doubt about it. Properties, and that's not just game lands, I'm sorry, but any property in Pennsylvania, what we fail to realize is that over 85% of deer are harvested on private property, not game lands. Some of this can be directly attributed to the fact that the game lands are not being managed for wildlife. They're just being left to manage themselves, which I've given this argument before based upon facts. Deer love to graze. Absolutely. Whether they graze on the forest floor or in a field, they much rather be eating legumes from a field, which would be anything that your clovers, your grasses. They're basically conceptually a small cow is a great way to think about a deer. And if you do not develop habitat for that, well, guess what? Farmers, ranchers, so on and so forth, guess what they're doing? They are developing habitat, not necessarily meant for the deer, but guess what? The deer love it. So what happens? 1,000-acre game lands. Boy, that's a good bedding area at night for the deer to just kind of lay down. And then guess what? During the daytime or during the nighttime, guess what happens? Back evenings and mornings, they're all around in those farmers' fields, whether that's cornfields, soybeans, legumes. It doesn't really matter. And then what happens? We'll etch right back in, not very far, into a little bit of the game lands just to sleep. But the collective usage of the game lands, the deer are going to go where there's food. Wildlife is going to go where there's food. It's no different than the upland bird fields. Yeah, why are the upland birds leaving the game lands? Well, guess what? You do need swampy area. It's great to have swampy areas for upland birds. It's absolutely a necessity that you have to have water. Birds need water. They got to have something to drink. So yes, swampy areas are great for upland birds. That being said, what do you have to have around that? You got to have food sources. So your sunflowers, your millets, your grains, these are all no-brainer ideas that those birds can eat and get to. Fantastic. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic opportunities. And then guess what? In the spring, you brush hog all that stuff in March. You disc it up end of April. Be planting it right around the 1st of May. It's a basic process. And a lot of these things, the numbers and the financials on it are minimal. Like, I've seen some of these game lands, the fields that were planted. I mean, it was less than like 30 acres. And it's like, okay, even if that's the case, if you're a good crop manager, which we should be, you could plant a couple fields with corn one year. You could come back the next year. Now that ground has been, we sprayed it, we brush hogged it, we sprayed it, killed all the vegetation, plant corn. You come back the next year, you're able to brush hog it, hit it with the disc. You're going to be able to plant something relatively simple without the need of major equipment. That being said, there's no-till equipment out there. Just, oh my goodness. To hear this hearing, watch the hearing. I watched it, actually. I watched the video. To read about it in Penn Live, to hear that there's over $500 million in an account, to hear that we're clearly lacking transparency, that we're hemorrhaging hunters and trappers. Now, I will say the numbers in the past couple years have kind of balanced out. We lost the hemorrhage over, it's no longer hemorrhaging, but it's still 92,000 people less from 2023 as compared to 2015. This is just utter fact. And, until we're back where we were, to me, I see it as a failure. And when you have a problem, you have to identify solutions. So this game lands management practices, to me, is a major, major, major red flag. And I think that it needs a total overhaul. It needs a total discussion. The game lands need to be managed for game. Period. End of story. And who hunts game? Hunters. Hunters and trappers. I don't have a problem with people riding horses, during the summer months or whenever, things are out of season. But I'm sorry, like, game lands are meant for game. Game is harvested by hunters and trappers. Those people deserve the priority. But that, again, this comes down to management. So, like, if you're going to allow people to just, even the fact, I'm sorry, but even the fact, like, right now, if somebody were to go walk their dog on the game lands, you don't have adequate, like, people that even go on there with the adequate amount of orange. They just think, oh, well, I'm just going to go for a walk. Like, to me, it's clearly a management problem. It's an oversight issue. And to hear all these different elected officials asking such really, really pointed and I thought out and intelligent questions from both sides of the aisle is extremely telling. This game commission problem is big. The fact the executive director resigned is its own ball of wax, but to hear these issues being brought up, there's a lot here. I'm going to tell you right now, without a shadow of a doubt, if the Game Commission and Fish Commission do not make some pretty drastic changes, I would say that within the next 10 years, this is my guess, that you will not see a Pennsylvania Game Commission and Fish Commission. There will be a merged agency to manage wildlife and fisheries. There's no doubt in my mind. You cannot continue to hemorrhage these amount of numbers of sportsmen and also employees and think that that's rationally going to be acceptable, even from either side of the aisle, from the elected officials. Eventually, it starts. The dominoes keep toppling. The first people that start raising questions get this perception of being rabble rousers, or they're just unhappy. Well, You know, and I've watched a bunch of the Facebook groups across the state where people have defended the game commission or defended certain people or certain processes and procedures. I don't know how you could defend us at this juncture. Looking at these numbers, looking at the amount of money they have, seeing what I've seen from different game wardens, seeing the conduct of people, seeing the lack of continuity, the lack of, I would say, care to being like, why are we not doing a better job to work with the hunting and fishing clubs in Pennsylvania? That to me is like, I do not understand. What they are literally the conduit to your hunters, trappers, and fishermen and boaters. Like, why are we not utilizing them as a resource? Where on earth do you think that everybody should do everything for free? Oh, you want people to go get their hunting, their train the trainer certification so they can train a class. Well, that's great. Guess what? You're giving cars to your employees. You're doing reimbursements for mileage. You're doing all this stuff. But you expect all these hunting and fishing clubs to do everything for free. We got to sell cookies. We got to do hoagie sales. We got to do spaghetti dinners. And we don't get squat. We don't get squat. Gun range improvements. Yeah, good luck with that. You're going to have to go to the NRA for support. Oh, you want to do habitat improvement on a stream? Well, if it's not open to the public for free, you're never going to see a dime from the Pennsylvania Fish Commission. So basically, you got to give up your property in every avenue with these different programs and whatnot. You can't be a club. You can't be a private entity that says, oh, well, I want you to come here, but, you know, you got to follow my rules. No. That's not how they do it. I mean, to look at everything of where we are when it comes to the Game Commission, and I will roll that over to the Fish Commission, it's completely, to me, it's an unbelievable cabal of questions that lack intelligent answers of how we got here. It's unbelievable how we got here. To lose the amount of hunters, to lose the amount of trappers. I mean, the number of youth trapping licenses sold this past year was it was under 100, I think. Something in that ballpark. Don't quote me. It was in that. It was an astronomically low number. So that means your next generation of trappers are basically non-existent, which I've talked about in past shows. The need for trappers from an ecological, an environmental perspective. For conservation to exist, trapping is a necessity, because if you do not address the predators while you're only addressing their food sources, you're totally failing the whole system of life. The circle of life is completely just off the rails. And I cannot stress enough, if you have the time, please look up this video. It was the Pennsylvania House of Representatives Game and Fisheries Committee. It is extremely enlightening. The questions that were asked were fantastic. I'm interested to see some of the questions. There were some of the answers that were not given, but were kind of like pivoted from. I'm interested to see what is provided to the general public. And you know, I'm interested to see how some of these management practices are going to change, because to say the game lands are being managed in a good way, to me, is like utterly a slap in every sportsman's face in this entire state. I'm sorry. Like, there's just, I'm baffled to even be talking about it. Like, to sit here and say that the Game Commission truly believes the game lands are being adequately managed for sportsmen and for game is absurd. It's utterly absurd, and I'm glad that our elected officials at the state level are really honing in on these questions, because you as a general public, somebody that is, whether you're buying a hunting license, whether you're buying a trapping license, or both, fishing licenses, boater registration, so on and so forth, you deserve to know these answers. How your money is being spent within this Commonwealth. And if there are issues that have correlating factors that impact the economy and the next generation of children, everybody deserves to know. Losing the amount of people that were spending money in our economy, losing nearly 10% of hunting licenses over an 8-year span, to me, is at a very minimum alarming. Downright, it's scary. that we allowed such horrific declines in sportsmen in the great state of Pennsylvania. But I will certainly be following up about these particular topics. Like I said, I'm really interested to see where things head with the answers. But sometimes getting answers from the government takes a little longer than we would certainly want and hope. But that being said, I want to circle back to the Mariana Outdoorsman Association running a 30% off special. If you'd like to join, please go to MarianaOutdoors.com. That's MarianaOutdoors.com. That being said, I do want to make a note that the annual MOA golf outing, which is a collaboration with the Fayette County Farm Bureau, that will take place Saturday, July 13th. That'll be at Cedar Brook Golf Course. Fantastic venue. If you would like to participate and or be a sponsor or make a donation, or maybe you just want to come out and volunteer to support conservation and agriculture, you can go to our website, MarianaOutdoors.com. We have a lot of information on there, or you can give us a call at 724-579-0924. And if those two things aren't good, please just go to our Facebook page, Mariana Outdoorsman Association, and just shoot us a message, and we'll get back to you. Would love to have you at the event. And we got a lot of fantastic things that we're lining up for fall. We have a lot of great projects we're lining up for the summer. So I'm really, really thankful of everybody's involvement in what we're doing and how we're doing it. And just really looking forward to, a fantastic year. But please, you can join the Mariana Outdoorsman Association at MarianaOutdoors.com. Again, that is MarianaOutdoors.com. And Wild Acres Farm, we're going to have flower picking beginning probably about early to mid-July. We have tons of sunflower fields, zinnias, you name it, we have it planted. So please, if you're looking to pick some flowers with anybody, we'll have jars and buckets available. You can come do that on your own. Also, we do fresh garden vegetables as well. So 10mileco.org. You can check that out. MarianaOutdoors.com. Call us at 724-579-0924. And please, as always, visit Washington County, Pennsylvania. I'm Jason White. This has been The Great Outdoors, and I will see you all next week.